Hey everyone, welcome back to Emmerverse. I'm Emmer, a cloud architect with over 10 years of cloud experience working both across AWS and Azure. Today, I want to talk about something most people don't realize until they hit the wall. Not all AWS services are available in every single region. And if you don't plan for that, it can absolutely derail your project. I'll walk you through a real example from my own experience setting up an air-gapped EKS cluster, where one critical AWS feature I needed was only available in US East 1, while the rest of my infrastructure was in US West 2. I'll show you the workaround I used and what you should keep in mind when choosing an AWS region. Let's go into it. Most people assume AWS regions are the same, that they're just different physical locations, but that's not true. Service availability actually varies from one region to another. New features often launch in US East 1 first, and some services never even roll out to other regions. And why is this important? Because when you're planning your cloud infrastructure, these differences can block progress unless you catch them early. I was building a secure, air-gapped EKS cluster in US West 2, no public internet, fully locked down. But even in that setup, the cluster still needed access to AWS IAM for authentication. Normally, you'd solve that with a VPC endpoint for IAM. The problem though, IAM VPC endpoints aren't available in US West 2. They're only supported in US East 1 and China and GovCloud. I couldn't use China or GovCloud regions, obviously, so I was stuck with US East 1. Since IAM is a global service with its API based in US East 1, that region has the interface endpoint. If your VPC is in another region, you'll need a workaround, like a transit gateway or VPC peering with custom DNS to reach it. I checked other regions too, and at the time, the US East 1 was the only viable option. So I had two choices: migrate everything to US East 1, which was not happening, or engineer a workaround. So what was the workaround? I set up a separate VPC in US East 1, created the IAM endpoint there, and then used Transit Gateway to connect that VPC to my primary one in US West 2. That allowed my private EKS cluster to route IAM traffic securely to where the endpoint actually lived. I'll drop a link in the video description with AWS's official documentation so you can follow the same steps if you need to. Now, this solution worked, but it added extra cost, more latency, and greater complexity to the project. And all of that was because one essential service wasn't available in the region where I had my infrastructure. So what's the takeaway here? If you're building on AWS, especially complex or secure systems, always check service availability before choosing a region. In some cases, like mine, you may not have a choice, but if you can choose, make sure the region supports all the features your solution needs. Don't assume that everything will be available in every region. Always review the AWS Regional Services list before you start building. If a key service or feature is missing from the region you're using, raise it immediately. Ideally, at the start of the project. The earlier you catch it, the easier it is to pivot or find a workaround. Now, you might be thinking, why not build everything in US East 1? Wouldn't that be the easiest choice? Just put the entire infrastructure, move the entire infrastructure to US East 1. And yeah, it gets features first, it supports more endpoints, and honestly, it feels like AWS's home base. But here's the catch. It's also the region that's most affected by outages. I've seen it multiple times. When US East 1 goes down, it tends to bring a lot of services down with it. So while it offers more features, it's not the best place for disaster recovery or high availability workloads. It's great until it's not. Here are a few tips to help you avoid the situation I ran into. First, always check regional services availability. And not just the service itself, but the specific features you'll be using, like VPC endpoints or enhanced networking options. Second, design for flexibility. That might mean breaking your infrastructure into reusable modules, abstracting your configs, or even planning for a multi-region setup down the road. And third, don't assume AWS behaves the same in every region. It doesn't. It's on you to know what's supported and where. To wrap things up, AWS gives you incredible flexibility, but if you assume every region is the same, you'll hit roadblocks, and sometimes they'll show up at the worst possible moment. In my case, I had to re-architect part of my air-gapped EKS deployment just to route IAM traffic through another region using Transit Gateway. It worked, but it wasn't ideal. So plan ahead, be aware of regional limitations, and if something seems like it should work but doesn't, it might be a regional thing. If you found this video helpful, give it a like. It really helps the channel grow, and I appreciate it. Let me know in the comments if you run into similar AWS limitations and how you handle them. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.